Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name's Carl Morris Jr. I'm actually from Johnstown, Ohio. Oops. I've been fishing around catfish for about 30 years. Started off fishing in farm ponds, probably like most of you guys, fishing in creeks. Anywhere I could stick a rod and reel in, I was fishing. So my daddy used to take me fishing when I was just a young and used to wade Licking River. For those of you guys, I know a few of you guys out there around Columbus, Newark area, probably familiar with the Licking River. Used to wade it, fishing for rock bass. But I started catching channel cat. And once I started catching channel cat, I was really excited. Catching a channel cat compared to catching bass, bluegill, and crappie, it was just, the aggressive fight was a lot of fun. So actually, when I was about 13, 14 years old, when I really started fishing for catfish. But it wasn't until I was probably about 15 years old, went down on a trip to the Muskingum River, got into a nice flathead. After that point, I was hooked. Just feeling the fight of a catfish compared to other fish, that was what I was into. So I started fishing for catfish pretty much, I'll say 13, 14, 15 years old on. My first championship that I ever fished for Cabela's, tell you guys a little quick story. In Ohio, there's a lake called Mosquito Lake. I used to do a lot of camping. A lot of fishing when I went camping. Used to schedule camping trips to go out and fish catfish tournaments. There was a catfish tournament up there put on by the Northeast Ohio Catfish Club, I believe was the name of the time. Actually was a qualifier for the King Cat Cabela's. I'd seen King Cat Cabela's. I'd seen those guys running around catching those big fish, but never went out on the river and competed with them at all, but won a lot of local tournaments, fishing around the lakes at home. We went up there, we fished this tournament, got first place. It actually won us a qualification to the King Cat Cabela's Championship in 2007, which was actually out in Junction City, Kansas. So me and my partner, Jeremy Martin, we thought, well, what the heck? Let's go ahead and try it. So we saved up our money all summer long. We took off. We went out to Junction City, Kansas. We had no clue what we was in for when we got there. We thought we were pretty good fishermen until we got out there. Well, I finished 109th out of 113 boats that year, so I didn't know half of what I thought I knew. So going out there, I really realized what fishing for big catfish was all about. I'd caught some flathead and I'd caught some channel cat. I hadn't really bluefished much. Didn't know what it was about. Well, I was on a blue lake out there, and obviously, by the total right there, you tell I didn't do very well. But the main thing was I went out there, I learned, I watched, I paid attention. I went to the weigh-in both days. Second day, didn't have a fish. But I went to that weigh-in anyways, and I stood there. And I don't know if anybody can tell you why. The reason why I wanted to talk to all those guys that were 100 times better than me that day. Talking to those guys and spending that 10 to 15 minutes out there made me a whole lot better. Well, after that, I decided I had to get better at this. So I started fishing more tournaments in 2008, 2009, 2010. Still didn't do very well. I was going out all across the United States, going to the Ohio River, Tennessee River, Cumberland River, Mississippi River, just getting my tail kicked everywhere I went. But the main thing that I did every time is no matter if I caught a fish or not, I showed up at that weigh-in and I'd figure out who the top few teams were and I'd try to steal them for a few minutes just to ask them, hey, what did you do today? How did you catch these? What bait was you using? What rig was you using? I was obviously missing something that they weren't. I needed that knowledge. But I'm telling you guys, go to your weigh-ins, stick around, talk to the guys out there. Most guys in catfishing will share anything with you. I don't know if they'll tell you everything, but they'll share a lot with you if you ask them. And I tell you what, that's what helped me get to be a lot better fisherman. Give you a little bit about myself. 2015, I had 8 top 5 finishes in Cabela's, Monsters on the Ohio, and other national tournaments. Won the 2012 King Cat Cabela's Championship. This is a funny story. My buddy Willie's sitting out in the back of the room, so I'm actually going to tell a little story about him. This 2012 year was the year that I kind of actually started figuring things out. Me and Willie Smith, another fellow from Ohio, was in a tight race for Angler of the Year that year. We came down to the very last tournament of the year down in Columbus, Georgia. We went in. Willie was actually ahead of me by a couple points. I figured he had me, but I drove all the way to Georgia anyway just to see if I could beat him. His brother, I believe it was, that lived down there at the time. So I figured, oh, man, he's got a shoe in. He's got a brother living on the water. I know they'd fish some catfish tournaments down there. I figured he knew what was going on. But we went down there. We got lucky. We beat Willie that day. Got enough points to actually sneak the Angler of the Year award. That was my first one. Then we went on and won the very next tournament, which was the actual 2012 King Cat Cabela's Championship. So we finished out the season with a bang. That was my first Angler of the Year, and I have since won 4 times, 2012 through 2015. Bear with me, guys. I can't get my pointer to click right. But 4-time King Cat Cabela's Angler of the Year. Today, we're here to talk about tournament prep. Everybody asks me all the time, what do I do? How do I do it? How am I able to win tournaments? And I'm going to share a few, things I do. I don't know that it's any different, any better than anybody else in this room. I'm just going to give you my 2 cents on how I go about things. We're going to talk about pre-fishing. Again, what do I do? How do I do it? Mapping. First thing that I do is read a map. A lot of guys show up to water and they get out there and they just look around, see what's going on, find a spot. I study. I actually start picking my tournaments out that I'm going to fish for the year, usually about January. As soon as the national trails have their schedules out, I map out my year. I start right then. Probably like a lot of you guys, I get yelled at by my wife a lot. I sit around I use an iPad. I have my Navionics app on there. I carry it to dinner with me. I carry it out to eat with me. I carry it to bed with me. Anywhere I got free time, I'm sitting around staring at a map looking at these tournaments. I'm going through trying to figure out, all the tournaments at this point in time are a little different. Some allow you to trailer. Some you got a controlled launch from a boat ramp. Those types of things make a big difference in where you can fish. Some of these places have unlimited boundaries, but you've got to launch from a single boat ramp. Well, those of us who know my boat isn't very fast, I can't go that far. So some of these guys can do 60 across the water. I can only do 30. I can't keep up with them. I can't go as far. So I've got to look at the areas that I can fish. So if we've got a controlled launch, I may be able to look 20 miles up, 20 miles down from that area. That's typically my rule of thumb, is I won't go more than 20 miles. There's fish somewhere in that 20 miles up or 20 mile down section. You just got to find them. So I will sit there and I will study those maps. Google Earth is the first one I usually look at to get familiar with all the lay of the land and the surroundings. Again, you can use Bing Maps. All of them are the same. I prefer Google Earth myself. So I'll pull up the lake, the body of water, whatever it is I'm fishing. You start getting the lay of the land. I'll mark out my 20-mile section from my boat ramp, or if it's a trailering event that allows me unlimited area, I will nail down a section that I think I want to fish. If I've been there before, I typically have an idea of where I want to go. Time of year plays a big difference in it as well. Where the fish are in the spring, they're obviously not in the same place in the summer, same place in the fall. They move around a little bit. Pull up your boat ramp, get a look at it. How many times the guys pulled into a body of water, looked up a boat ramp, pulled into it, couldn't use it? Well, that's wasted time. Most of you guys, like myself, when you guys are going out of town to fish a tournament, we have a very limited time frame in which we got to get things done. We get out there, we don't have 3, 4, 5 days all the time. A lot of times, I work a full-time job running a landscape company. I work daylight to dark. Mowing grass and slinging mulch is not an easy gig, so especially in the springtime. So I have very limited time. A lot of times, I'll leave Thursday afternoon, Thursday night, show up wherever I'm fishing Friday morning. I've got Friday morning from daylight to dark to figure out what I'm going to do. So the more things that I know ahead of time to save me time from goofing around when I'm out running around, the better. So I'll find my boat ramps. I'll sit back, Navionics, as I told you guys with my iPad. I'll sit back and I'll stare at these maps nonstop, finding the little bends, the little crooks, contour lines. A lot of guys just go down a river and look. I will sit there and I will search that map until I find those little funky straight ledges, little contours. It's something little at times that a lot of times I've been on bodies of water. Wheeler Lake, I have fished that place I don't know how many times. I still find new areas that I've overlooked nonstop just by sitting there staring at the map. Having a hot maps chip or equivalent, I know everybody's got their favorite, but hot maps is one of my favorites that I like to use. I'm going to give you a tip. A lot of guys don't have access to all this stuff. If anybody goes to Navionics website, if you've been on there, they have a web app. It is for free. It doesn't give you all the same functions that the paid for apps do, but you can pull up. This is actually off of their website for free. Look at any body of water that you want to. It'll get you familiar with things. So if you don't have, an iPad with the app on it or whatnot, if you're looking at your phone, it's awful small trying to look at those pictures. So you can pull that up on your home computer, again, for free, and take a look at it. First thing I want to worry about after I get my mapping nailed down where I'm going to be at is bait. Everybody in here knows bait's key. It doesn't matter where you're fishing at. If you're on fish or not, you got to have good bait. So that is probably one of the main things that I will tell you is take care of your bait, find your bait, take care of it. Once you've got it, I've seen guys put bait in Ziploc baggies. I've seen them throw them in the bottom of coolers full of water. I've seen them laying in buckets. Me, I'm a baby with my bait. As soon as I catch that stuff, I pull it right out of the water. It goes right on ice. If I got a few guys that help me out in bait catching. They're the ones that taught me how to take care of bait. I didn't understand it before. I did it just like a lot of other people. But there is a huge, huge difference in quality of bait. I've seen guys go out, with skipjack that are red-eyed, been freezer burnt, been laying around for 6 months. That typically doesn't catch you a whole lot of fish. Not that it won't, because some days, you know what, you get lucky and you do. But 9 times out of 10, having good bait is going to be the key, and it's how you take care of it. If you've got frozen bait, another thing guys make a big mistake of is unthawing it. How they unthaw it. I like to unthaw mine slow and naturally. I used an analogy before, kind of like a steak. Anybody ever froze a steak, doesn't want to throw it in the microwave and defrost it and throw it on the grill. That doesn't taste very good, does it? No. I mean, that's just kind of the same thing. It just ain't very good. I like to let my frozen bait unthaw overnight, naturally. I'll take it out of the freezer. I'll put it in the freezer. Or depending on what temperatures are outside, if it's in the 40s, I'll let it, start unthawing out there. I like it to get soft on its own. I don't like to just pull it out of a freezer, throw it in a cooler, cut it up while it's frozen, let it unthaw in the boat when it's 95 degrees out. Again, that's my process with it. I like to let it unthaw naturally. I cut it out of the pack at that point, and we'll pack it nice. Pack it with care. Again, guys put their fish in there, they throw ice on them, they bury them in the bottom. Well, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, your bait's waterlogged. It's no good. Simple concept. I actually, in some of my coolers, we got little braces in there to keep it up, but if not, you keep your ice above your drain level. Keep it several inches above your drain level so that way your fish, that ice is going to melt. Guys will make the mistake of putting it right even with the drain. Well, give it a couple hours. It's going down. You want to make sure you put it a couple inches above your drain line on there so that your bait isn't getting into the water. Drain it well. I'll leave that cooler sitting all day long at an angle. I want that water running out of there at all times because, again, bait is my key. Fresh bait, skipjack, shad. Who wouldn't rather have fresh bait than frozen bait? I will move heaven and earth to get fresh bait at a tournament. I have driven all night long before. I have left southern Ohio to drive to northern Alabama to get bait. I've been all over the country to get bait for a tournament. And there's plenty of people in here I see nodding your heads right now that understand that been in the same thing or actually been with me on some of these trips. Again, I will go anywhere in the world I can to get fresh bait for a tournament. Fresh is king. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. Not that frozen bait doesn't do the trick, but again, could you have a fresh steak or a frozen steak? Which one are you going to take? I don't think anybody going to walk into the steakhouse and be like, hey, can I have one that's frozen? It's just no good. Now, again, frozen bait has a place. We all use it. We all fun fish with it. And I've won tournaments with frozen bait. So I can't tell you that, frozen bait doesn't work. I can just tell you that more often than not, fresh bait will work better. That's my opinion of it. Natural bait, shad, bluegill. What do you guys want fresh natural bait for? The guys guys were talking to me about Sandy Cooper a little bit ago, asking me if skipjack works down in Sandy Cooper, and I said, yeah, you can catch some blue cats down there on skipjack, but it's not the natural bait that's there. I went down there and fished with skipjack. I've had some good days. I've had some days I haven't caught much at all. It's not natural or native to that body of water. And a lot of guys make that mistake. They think blue cat, will eat skipjack all over. And they will. I mean, just like we eat a little bit of everything all over. And you'll notice throughout my talk, I reference a lot of fishing back to just normal things that we do because it's just like that. It's common sense things. But if there's not skipjack in the body of water or there's not shad in the body of water, I'd suggest you not using that as your primary bait. Even though people will tell you if skipjack catch blue cat, which they do. But Sandy Cooper's one place that I can tell you that it doesn't work as great as other baits do down there. You'll have some guys that'll tell you, yeah, I've caught some decent fish down there on it, but it doesn't work near as well as the bait that's actually in that body of water. For big blues, again, 9 times out of 10, skipjack is what I want to use. Here's a picture of one I got about 6 weeks ago down at Wheeler Lake, 80-pound blue. This one was actually caught on frozen skipjack. So this is a proof to you guys that frozen skipjack will catch big fish. I mean, there's not a problem with it. Again, I prefer to use the fresh, but for blues, skipjack is my big favorite. For flatheads, I prefer shad. Shad, a lot of guys, sit there and they talk about, you got to have bluegill, you got to have this. Well, I can tell you there's a lot of guys I see in here fishing the Ohio River, they'll tell you skipjack will catch a heck of a lot of flathead as well. Cut bait, you'll hear flathead fishermen swear, you got to have live bait. I hardly ever use live bait for flathead, but I catch a lot of them. They'll eat, it boils down to you got to find those fish, and you got to put that bait right in front of them. So you find them, you put it in front of them, you'll catch them. But just goes to show you, guys think you can't catch flatheads unless you got bluegill, live shad, or live fish. That ain't the case. Catch a lot on skipjack, but I prefer to have shad myself for flatheads. Now, taking off. We've got our tournaments picked out. We've got our mapping done. We figured out kind of the section of the water we want to go to. We figured out what we're going to do about bait, what bait we're going to use. Sometimes it's a little harder figuring out where we're going to get it at, but we figured out what we want. So now I got to go into getting my equipment ready because there's nothing worse than taking off, going 500 miles across country and not being prepared. And I'm sure, anybody that's traveled, you guys have taken off, forgot your spare tire, forgot your bearing hub, forgot your charger, whatever it may be. That was a big pain to you guys down there. So just a few things, and this, again, I can't tell you everything to get ready on equipment because there's just so many, but I just want to point out a few things just to get the mind running a little bit. Charging your boat batteries. How many guys make the mistake, I'll charge it when I get there? Well, you get to the hotel, and there isn't no outside power real easily found. Well, I've done that before. I can show you pictures of extension cords strung from 3-story hotel rooms running down through and around, and I mean, we've got 300 foot strung out to get my boat charged. You don't want to do that. You know how hard that is to try to figure that out, and then the hotels really don't like it very well when you got that stuff strung everywhere. They come out and try to yell at you, tell you you're not allowed to do it. We sneak and do it anyway. We got to get that boat charged somehow. But just having your stuff charged. But in case, make sure you have extension cords 3 ways. How many guys have showed up to a tournament? There's 3 plugs out there, and there's 10 boats that got to be charged. What do? You can't unplug your buddy's boat and say, I'm taking first. No, I got a 3-way, so I'll unplug his boat, plug that in, and plug 2 more in. So that way we can all get some. I carry a 3-way with me so I can always tap in and make sure I get power. Spare batteries. I always carry a spare battery with me. Those of you guys have been out sometimes, even on the water, one just took a dump on you. Well, I've actually lost tournaments before that I was doing really well because I didn't have a spare battery with me, lost my trolling motor. Well, I'm a drifting guy. I drift 99% of the time. My trolling batteries are key to my success. So I always make sure that I've got some spares with me. Spare trailer tire, hubs and bearings. I know there's a few guys in here that's actually helped me change hubs and bearings. I know I was at a Bass Pro tournament 2 years back that I actually limped through the weigh-in line. I pulled out of the boat ramp. My tire fell off right in the parking lot. So I had to ratchet strap it up to get through weigh-in. And I know there's a few guys sitting in the back of the room that actually came over and helped me get that together. Wouldn't have been able to get home if I didn't have the spare parts. It was a Saturday night. It was 6 o'clock. Parts shops are closed, and getting some of those funky hubs and things from AutoZone and things like that don't always work either on a Sunday. So carry your spares with you. Reels, have them lined, ready. I don't know how many times I see guys, spending time, they could be out pre-fishing, trying to get their poles ready, getting all this stuff together. I want to leave. When I leave town, I want to have everything buttoned down, ready to go. So my poles are lined up, ready to go. Now, I do not have my rigs tied on them because I'll have to get down there and I decide once I'm there on the body of water how I want to fish. Because sometimes it depends. You guys have all done it. We've been down the Ohio River. Current's been nice. We fished it for 2 days. We get a heck of a rainstorm. We wake up the next morning, and all of a sudden, she's got 3-mile-an-hour current in her. So I want to be able to adapt to the conditions when I get there. So I will not tie my rigs on. Various weights and rigs. We will have all different kinds of weights because, again, depending on what type of fishing you want to do while you're down there, what you need. Again, that current, you may have been using 2 to 3 ounces, getting down through there just fine on Friday. Well, that rain came in, that water got up. You might need 8 to 10 on Saturday to get through. Well, I've watched guys go out because they didn't anticipate that. They've got 3-4 ounce sinkers tied together trying to get their weight down there. Well, obviously that's not making your rig perform very well. It's getting your bait down there, but that's not ideal for you. So I will carry a variety. I've got 2 boxes actually that I carry. I've got one that takes me from 1 ounce up to 8 ounce, and then I've got 10 ounce up to 32 ounce. Guys ask me, well, what the heck you doing with a 32 ounce sinker? Well, for those of you guys been out in Mississippi, you understand what I'm doing with that 32 ounce sinker. So Mississippi River's always got a boatload of current in it. So not that I like throwing a 32 ounce sinker very often, but it has its place down there at times. So, but I'll have those 2 boxes ready. You see the bottom one, travel time equals tying time. You'll see my partner, Rob, most time when he's driving down the road, he's tying up those rigs. We utilize that downtime. We're in the front of a truck for 6-8 hours. He's not doing a whole lot, so he's getting all that little stuff ready. He'll sit there and tie, 10 different rigs, up of different styles so that we have them ready. We don't want to be out there pre-fishing on Friday morning, sitting there in the boat tying up rigs. So he'll tie 10 of, Carolinas. He'll have 10 3-ways, maybe 10 with floats on them, whatever we think we might utilize down there, ready to go. So that's what he does in the front of the truck, utilizing that downtime to be productive. Pre-fishing. This is always a fun one. We all want to get out of town, and what do we want to do? Anybody goes down to Wheeler Lake, whether they're fishing a term or not, what's the first thing you want to do on Friday when you hit that water? You want to go out and you want to find the biggest fish you can and put it in the boat. That's what everybody's there for. Well, a lot of times that is the case, but you can't win tournaments like that. How many times you guys went out and pre-fished on a Thursday or Friday and just lit them up? Just went down there, you hit your hole, and man, they were just thick down through there, and you just sit there and you just caught fish after fish. And you're thinking, man, this is good. Well, it's good today. It's real good today. But it probably won't be real good on Saturday. You sit there and sore lip all your fish all day long. That's the biggest mistake that I see out of guys. They go out, they find a couple fish, and they sit there and they just beat them on the head all morning or all day long. Well, there's only so many fish going to be in that hole. You keep sore lipping them, you ain't catching none on Saturday. So we'll go out. First thing I want to do is scam. That's the first thing we get out and do. I want to go out to all these predetermined areas I mapped out. When I was looking at my map sitting at home, I got all these areas mapped out. I may have 10, I may have 20, I may have 30 predetermined locations that I want to go to based off the map. Well, now I'm going to go out and scan all those areas. Some of them I pull up to, there ain't a fish there, there ain't nothing there. I was wrong. Map looked real good, but you got out there, there's nothing in there. So I keep going until I find the fish. And I think that's one thing that, I strive hard on. I think it makes me do a little bit better at times than some others is because I keep looking for those fish. I may have sit in one hole one day, last trip down there, may have caught a boatload of fish. Well, that means I should go back there and fish it again, right? Hell, I caught them there, 2 weeks ago. They got to be there. Well, how many times you guys went back to the same honey hole and not caught a fish? That's because they moved. Trust your depth finder. That is one of the bigger things I can tell you guys. How much do you guys pay for those boxes you got on your dash? I mean, good God, they get more and more and more every year. I know an HDS 12 is running in the $3,300 range, I believe now. Why pay $3,300 to have a box on your dash you don't know how to use? That's one thing that I will tell you guys, and I mean, believe me when I say it, I became a lot better fisherman when I learned how to use that box on my dash. I used to think, well, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I can see some fish here. Well, water temperature's this. Here's my map. Well, great. I didn't know how to use it. You know, I was spending all this money for those depth finders, and I didn't know how to use them. Once I spent the time and invested hours and hours and hours into learning between watching videos, talking to guys, and just getting out on the water and playing with it, it made me a lot better fisherman. I will tell you guys that right now. Learn how to use, whether it's a Humminbird, Lowrance, or whatever, Garmin, whatever you're running, learn it, understand it, become one with it. It will make your fishing a lot better. But I'll go out, I do a lot of down scanning. Tree right there. You guys, there you go. Not many catfish on that tree when I went over and took that picture, but you can see all the bait fish stacked on it. Well, when you find bait fish stacked on there, usually there's some catfish somewhere close by. If they're not there right then, they'll be there shortly. I mean, that's like the buffet right there. But you can see that, you know, this one here, it's got the tree root ball sticking up here. It's got the slope going down. There's usually fish packed down through there. Like I said, in this picture, wasn't a bunch of big catfish on it, a lot of bait fish. But I'm going to go and I'm going to find, I'm looking for little treasures just like that right there that, you know, somebody's overlooked. So I find that, I usually fish it. You know, that's usually going to be a good spot for me. But what I generally use is down scan and side scan. I use my sonar occasionally, but I usually use down scan and side scan, dial it in, look for my fish. Determine your target area. So once I've went out and I've down scanned, I have found my fish, found my areas, I've determined my target area. I know where I want to go on Saturday. So out of those 30 spots or 20 spots that I went out and I found, now I got to decide, how am I going to fish them? Everybody in here fishes a different way. Some people drift, some people anchor, some people walk bait, some people bounce bait, some people drag bait. There's all these different methods that you can go about. Everybody asks me, well, what do you do? I do them all. That's the thing. I do them all at different times. There's different times where different applications need to be applied. Anchoring doesn't always work. Drifting don't always work. Dragging don't always work. You know, I do a combination when I'm out there pre-fishing. We'll go ahead, we'll drop a few baits in the water. A lot of times we're not trying to catch fish. You know, we'll drop a few baits to see if we can find some active fish. Well, how do we do that? We may throw 2 poles off the back and we may drag them. We may have a couple suspended. I may have a couple, you know, have one in my hand sitting there walking the bait. Well, where did I get the bites at? Did I get them on the dragging pools? Did I get them on the suspended? You know, fish are showing up in the column a little bit. You're typically going to get them on suspended. First showing down there in the bottom, you're typically going to get them on the dragging. Well, but then even that, they may be just off the bottom. Maybe you need to drag it with a float on it to keep it up just a little bit. There's all these different ways. You've got to determine what style you want to use. Again, anchoring, spot lock. A lot of guys know me. I have an anchor on my boat. It's probably 5 years old, I'm going to say at this point, and it looks brand new. It's probably only seen the bottom, I'd say probably 10 times or less. I do not anchor. I'm fortunate enough I got one of those iPilots on there, spot lock. I spot lock, and I got various drift socks on my boat. Most of the time I'm fishing a river application, so there's a little bit of current. You know, I've got drift socks that are anywhere from 18 inches to 72 inches large. I'll spot lock, throw a drift sock off the back. It will hold me straight. I will use that as my form of anchoring. But drifting, bouncing, walking, suspended are all methods in which to go and tack these fish. You need to determine what you like, what works for you, but more importantly, what works for the fish. Because I think that's where guys make a mistake, because there's some guys that like to anchor. That's what we do. That's all we do. Well, some guys like to drift. That's what we do. That's all we do. Well, I can tell you what's made it a lot better for us is being able to get halfway decent at all those different functions. I can't tell you that I'm great at any of them, but I'm fluid in all of them, I guess. So I know how to drift well. I know how to drag baits. I know the proper ways to use the weights and things. So I've got, like I said, I won't tell you that I'm better than anybody else in this room at any of these things, but I'll just tell you that I know how to do them all, and I catch fish doing them all. Follow your instinct. After you've done these, you've mapped it, you've looked at it, you scanned it, you fished it, what's your gut tell you? Most guys overthink it. They sit there and, oh, God, do I go to this spot? Oh, well, we saw these over here. Oh, we're over here. Most guys just stress out over it. They overthink it. Follow your gut. Most of the time, it doesn't lie to you. In life in general, not fishing, just life in general, how many times your gut steer you wrong? When you usually have an instinct that you need to go this way or you need to do this, how many times do you look back and say, man, if I had just followed my instinct, I'd have been all right? A lot of times. A lot of times that happens. You guys second guess yourselves and say, man, if I just went with plan A, I'd been all right. Well, most time, I'm going to tell you, go with plan A. Whatever your gut tells you, go with. Take a chance. To wrap up, we're running short on time here. Guys ask me, how do you win? I honestly don't know the answer to how I win tournaments or how I've done better than anybody else. The thing I tell everybody and people that know me, I'm the first one up. My truck's the first one in the boat ramp every morning. When it comes tournament time, I'm up, I'm there. I'm usually out on the water before anybody's even getting going. I'm also the last one out. When guys give up at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're going in, they're done for the day. If I haven't found what I want, one of those 30 spots, sometimes it takes me all day long. There's been numerous times where me and Rob have been frustrated. We've been out, and we just haven't found them. And at 6 o'clock, we went over that last 1 or 2 or 3 holes, and we're like, oh, right there it is. There it is. Well, while everybody else gave up and went home with what they had for the day and said, well, I didn't find fish very well, but I think I got a few. I will continue to look and work until it's dark or I got to be at a meeting or I'm just plain out of time. Those are the things I'll tell you. Work hard. Anything you get in life anymore ain't easy. You got to work hard at it. So like I said, I am the first one up. I am the last one out all the time. Remember, I came from 109 out of 113 boats. So can you. I stunk it up for years. And like I told you guys at the beginning, the thing that has made me a little bit better at tournament fishing is the fact that I put in the time. That's number one. You can't get good at anything without practice, without knowing your craft and working hard at it. I learned from guys who were obviously much better than me when I'd go to these tournaments. Like I said, it started off me and Sean, me and Jeremy, we would go to these tournaments, and it was tough. It was tough. I was defeated I don't know how many times. I would drive back across country on Sunday. I'd say, man, I don't want to do this again. I just need to give up. This just ain't working out. But I'd go back one more time, and I'd keep talking to fellas, like I said, that did a lot better than me, that, on that day, I would stand there. I would clap for them. I would go stand there and wait until they got their prize, got their plaque, whatever it was, and just say, hey, sir, can I talk to you for a few minutes? Just to get that 5 minutes worth of time. I would stand there at that weigh-in for an hour to get 5 minutes worth of somebody's time. Maybe they'd give me a little tip, fishing the Mississippi River. I know I was out there fishing a couple of tournaments, wasn't doing so well. Daryl and Jason Masgill, they happened to be fishing in the same area I was one day. They told me, hey, slow it down just a little bit. You'll be fine. I went out the next tournament, fished out in Crystal City, Missouri. I won it because I slowed down a little bit. Exactly. Them guys gave me that little tip that helped me out a lot. There's numerous guys I could tell you that has, given me that 5 or 10 minutes worth of time afterwards, that I've made friends with guys all across the country that help me out a lot. It isn't that I'm that much better than anybody else. It's just I try to learn, pay attention, and watch the guys around me. That's what's made me a better fisherman. And I'll tell you again, your Lawrence, your Hummingbird, Learn how to use it. Please, you guys spend a boatload of money on those toys, but I'd say if I had to give you guys a challenge, I'd say probably less than 50% in this room here right now can use it well. That is the big thing. I mean, I'm telling you what, learn how to read those things, learn how to use it. Don't go back to the same honey hole all the time just because you caught fish there yesterday. Doesn't mean they're going to be there today. Trust that box. Get out there, find those fish. We're about done here. I'm running out of time getting the old thumb getting kicked off the stage here. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes. Anybody's got any questions, I'll stick around up front here so we can talk a little bit longer. And I appreciate you guys stopping by today. What's that? No, I'll hang out. I guess I'll hang out back. I'm being kicked all the way out of the room now. So I'll hang out back. But anybody's got any questions, please come see me. I'd love to talk to you guys. I appreciate all your time, and good luck out there. And follow me on Facebook. You guys got any questions you guys forget today, hit me up. I'd be glad to talk to you guys.